Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of the Smart Flip with me and Matt. And today, guys, we have a guest. His name is Jared. He has been phone flipping for quite a while. Do you flip stuff outside of phones, Jared?
Yeah, I do some other things as well. I've done like
Cool.
gaming systems a little bit. I've done some
Yeah,
cameras, camera lenses, but mostly primarily Apple products,
yeah,
iPads, MacBooks, that stuff. And phones is the main thing.
nice. So we'll be jumping into a little bit of how he sells almost all of his stock on eBay, which I
Nice.
think is going to be really good for this podcast because there's people out there in the Facebook groups that'll tell you not to use eBay. Obviously, me and Matt, we love eBay
Yeah, we
because
do.
we can offload things quickly. We can offload things that are not Apple products, and that makes it a big deal.
Mhm.
If you don't have eBay in your back pocket, it can be very difficult to grow your business. Um, I mean, you can still do it, but it's just it's nice to have that outlet. But before we get started, if you guys want to check out more stuff, make sure you check out the other episodes of the Smart Flip. We're 50 something episodes in at this point. Matt, we've been doing this for like a year at this point.
Watch
It's
out, man.
crazy.
Watch out.
Also, if you want to be featured on the podcast and you want to plug your business a little bit, let us know. We'll bring you on. We'll talk about your business and put your business name out there, kind of like we'll do with Jared today.
Yep.
With that being said, if you guys want to check out the ebook on flipping electronics, Tech Flips to Profit, you guys can grab that on episode 11 of the podcast. It is free on the audio version. If you want to get the PDF version and the bonuses and stuff that come with it, it's like $4.95. So check it out. With that being said, let's get started and just jump right into this thing today. Um, Jared, dude, how'd you get into business, man?
Yeah, so I got in business. It was honestly kind of by accident. So a few years ago, I was working a job and I kind of got to my breaking point, and I just decided definitively that I was never going to work for somebody else again, ever. And at the time, that was kind of an uncomfortable decision to make because, financially kind of needed the money of a job, but I was not willing to negotiate that anymore. Like I could not have somebody telling me what to do, when to do it, how much I'm worth. So my wife said, you know what, that's okay. Like I got you. I'm gonna get a waitressing job and you can figure out what you want to do. And so she got a waitressing job, and I'm kind of trying to figure out what I do, how do I make an income. I don't want her to be working forever.
Yeah,
And so eventually I was like, maybe I could just make a little side income while I'm trying to figure out what I'm actually going to do. Maybe I can buy and sell something. So I went on Facebook Marketplace and I'd buy some, like a concrete saw or a car radio, just random stuff, and I'd buy it and sell it on eBay. Eventually, there was one day where I found an Apple Watch Ultra. This is when they like first came out, and this guy wanted like 450 for it, I believe. And I got him down to 400. I bought it the same day, or I bought it and sold it the same day for a $200 net profit. I was like, that was pretty easy. So my first thought process was like, okay, so if I can find Apple products, then I can probably sell them for a good profit whenever I do come buy them. But my assumption was that that probably wouldn't happen very often because Apple products are so highly sought after. But I kind of started focusing on Apple products anyways, and I started to find, iPhone here, iPad there, and it just started to get more and more until I think it was my second month of business. I looked up and I was like, man, I made $7,200 of profit this month. I'd never made that kind of money before. And so from there, I think it was my third month where I hit over $10,000 of net profit. And at that point, I kind of looked up and I was like, wait a minute. So I think I have an actual business here. Like, I don't think this is just like a little, side thing. Like, I'm actually making real money. And so from there, it just kind of got bigger, and I started running ads and kind of adding to how I found devices and how people found me. And yeah, here we are.
that's awesome. So you it's funny because it's almost like you went into the business backwards in a way. Like a lot of people start with phones and they're like, oh wow, this is you know this thing works. But you like started off with some random items, very similar to I guess how Matt got started. Um, kind of going backwards into figuring out that Apple products are one of the most sought after items on top of the other stuff too. That's pretty cool. I mean and I do love that like that aha moment, that we all have when we're like, oh crap, this is an actual thing. Um, I actually, and then you get to the point where you're like, do I need an LLC? Like, do I need to be paying taxes on this? Like, what do I do now? Tell us about that experience.
Yeah. So, it kind of as time went on, my first realization once I realized that I had an actual business was, okay, I should probably start treating it as a business instead of just like a little, side thing. And that's why I was like, okay, let me make it an actual business, make it into an LLC. Let me start running ads. Let me set up a Google My Business page, this, that, and the other. And I just kind of started that. That's around that time whenever I realized, wait, this is an actual business. That's when I started looking into, do other people do this too? And then I found, like, for example, your Facebook group, your YouTube, and other people's YouTubes and Facebook
Yeah.
groups. And I was like, okay, this is what people actually do this. For some reason, I just didn't find it the normal way. I found it just through exploration, I guess. And yeah, so I started digging into, like, what are good tactics to use for this business? What are things that I need to take care of, as far as like taxes or LLCs. And yeah, I just kind of dug in and went through all the processes. And I was like, okay, this seems like it'd be a good fit. I tried a couple different things that like didn't work. Like, for example, Google Ads didn't work for me because my area is just so small. So
Mm.
Facebook ads have been like more of the focus for me personally. But yeah, it's been great. It's been
Just
a little
curious. How big is your area? Like, what's the population?
um I think it's like 300,000 within like 45 minutes of me. So
I'm
it's
gonna send
pretty
after
small.
this podcast. After this podcast, I'll send you some information on Google Ads again, because we have a guy in a area of about 50,000, uh, and he's doing very well.
Wow.
But that's because um, he shows up as like the only guy because it's such a small city.
Yeah.
Whenever I checked his conversion rate, it was like 92%, like, of
Uh,
people opting into his website. And I was like, what is happening? Like, I've never seen this ever. And I came to learn it was like he's like the only one showing up. I was like, makes sense now. Got it.
that does
So,
make sense.
um, I love that. So your primary way of getting leads right now is Facebook ads.
Yeah, Facebook ads. And as you know, I have a lot of repeat customers.
Mhm.
So, and I still do a good bit of marketplace outreach. One thing I always tell people is, like, do not, at least how I see this, don't limit yourself to only, ads or repeats, because the best profit margins in my experience is Facebook Marketplace. Because if somebody comes to me as a business and they say, hey, I got this MacBook, let's just say the retail, or the if I can sell it on eBay for 1,500, I might buy it for, let's say, 1,000, but I'm not gonna offer them as a business 500.
Yeah.
That sounds silly, right? But on Marketplace, for whatever reason, I'll see people that will list that laptop for $500, and I'll go
Mm.
buy it. And where I would never offer them that much. That's lower than what I would offer as a business. And like, last year, I found this camera, brand new camera, never even used. It was a $3,500 camera. I think I ended up selling it for 3,200, and I bought it for
Wow.
$1,000. And that's what they listed it as. And if somebody brought that camera to me as a
Yeah.
business, I might have offered them, 2,000 or 2,200, something like that. So, the best profit margins in my experience are definitely on Marketplace, because for whatever reason, people list stuff sometimes at ridiculously low prices. I don't know if it's because they don't know or they just don't care. Regardless, though, that's where the best margins have come for.
I think with Facebook Marketplace, Matt, you could probably say more a little bit about this. After a while, the algorithm based on what you click shows you things that are more like that thing over time, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why
Mhm.
Matt has a saying like you need to touch your eBay store daily. You need to, like, touch Marketplace. Like
Yep.
if you do that, it'll get trained to kind of show you more of what you want, right? And that sounds like what's happening with you, Jared. It's like it's showing you, these, like that camera, for example. And by the way, for everybody who doesn't know, cameras are ridiculous profits. Like
Very
cameras,
good. Very
drones,
good.
and all of those types of things, like MacBooks, like a lot of these things are like you can make ridiculous amounts of money on them,
Mhm.
just because people, they don't know, like they're not sure, they don't care, they just need money. So, um, I have, I found a Valve Index, funny enough, on Craigslist about a week ago or 2 weeks ago now. Made $1,000 in profit off of that thing. Like one deal. It's crazy,
Yep.
and he listed it really low. So what you're saying is, yeah, it's 100% true. I love that. Tell us a little bit more about what you do in terms of like Facebook ads. Like, what are you spending per day? What's that look like? What did it start off as, and what is it now?
Yeah, so actually for Facebook ads, it has been I used your video that you put on YouTube for my Facebook ad, so thank you for that.
No problem.
Yeah, I started off with like $5 a day, probably maybe 6 months after I started the business. And I started to see like a little bit of success. So then I ramped it up a little bit more and a little bit more. And over time, I've had to kind of change the images to, because sometimes it's like they work really good for a while and they start to lose traction. So I have to change it up. But
Well, that's because of the
right now,
frequency. Yeah.
yeah, it's like people just see the same thing over and over and over, and that work as well. Right now I'm at $30 a day. I've gone as high as 50. I've gone as low as like 20, just depending on the day. Sometimes I'll like if I have, let's say, a bunch of people scheduled already, I might drop it a little bit just to kind of like, so that I can so that I'm not overwhelmed. That's also another thing that I'm looking towards in the near future is hiring a virtual assistant to kind of help with all those things.
Yeah.
So in terms of Facebook leads, a lot of people don't realize, like, Facebook ads are interruption marketing. Like, you're interrupting somebody's news feed. They're on social media, right? Like, they're distracted. Let's be real. Like,
Yep.
you follow up with your leads pretty often.
Yeah, well, I follow up with leads where it feels appropriate. Like I don't have it systemized like I probably should, to be honest. I probably should have a system to where everybody's followed up with like clockwork.
Yeah.
I don't have that. And honestly, it's because of it's one of the reasons why I want to have a virtual assistant because
Mm,
at the present moment, it's like it's just too much going on for me to be able to do that to the fullest extent, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, you're hyper focused on the main deals, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you upsell at all?
Not do you mean like just letting them know like, hey, I buy other things?
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to make that a habit pretty regularly, especially like if I'm meeting somebody on Facebook Marketplace, for example, and they have no idea like who I am.
Yeah.
Um, which actually that's another thing. On for Facebook Marketplace deals, I don't know if you guys have tried this or experienced with this, but I've noticed that like I think it's called the banner, the thing behind your profile picture on Facebook.
Hmm.
For as long as I've had this business, I have had like a thing that says like Jared buys iPhones, MacBooks, this, that, and the
Yeah.
other. And so that way, whenever I do contact somebody on Facebook Marketplace, I might be contacting them about an iPhone. They click on my profile because they want to be like, okay, is this guy sketchy? Like, can I trust him when I meet him? And then they see, oh, he buys iPhones and MacBooks. Hey, man, I also have this other iPhone, this other MacBook, or this, that, and the other. Would you be interested? So that's actually helped me without even having to say it out loud. They click on my profile and they say, oh, okay, well, if he buys stuff, then I got these other things. Or my sister, my brother,
Yeah.
my wife has this other thing that I want to sell too. So that's been very, very
Nice.
fruitful as well.
Yeah,
Like,
that's nice.
that's called, in the marketing world, we call that a profile funnel, right? Um, where it says on the back basically what you do is as soon as somebody clicks on, and then you can also do it in a pinned post on your profile as well. And that works quite well as well. That way, people, like, they can just scroll down because people do that. I do it all the time just to see if somebody's legit. And
Yeah.
like, if that's their profile looks good. I also do that with, like, if I do marketplace reach outs, I want to just make sure I'm not going to get robbed. So like, if the dude's holding a
Fair
gun on the
enough.
profile photo, I'm just like, and I'm good.
I actually did get robbed about 5 months into the business.
Really, dude,
Sure
tell us
did.
about
Yeah.
that experience if
Yeah.
you're
So
okay with that.
yeah, man. So I'll start off with one of the funniest parts that I still think to this day is the one and only time that I've ever used this method. I've never done it since, and I never did it previous to this. I asked the guy because he was coming from like 2 hours away, so we were going to
Okay.
meet up in the middle. And I was like, "Hey, man, would you mind sharing your location on Facebook? I'll do mine as well. That way we can see that we're both on our way, and we know that we're not flaking on each other." Only time I've ever done that. I've still not done that with anybody yet
Hmm.
since then. And it just so happens that when we met up, he decided that he was going to try to sell me fake Apple Watch Ultras for
Huh.
$900, two of them. I realized they were fake. I was like, hey, man, I can't buy these. And he decided I was going to buy them anyways. So he pulled a gun on me
Good.
and yeah, pulled a gun on me. And this was in broad daylight in the middle of like right beside a Starbucks. And like there was a police station, like just maybe 100 feet away. Like
What?
it made no sense
Holy
as to
crap.
why he did that. It seemed like a very safe, space, but I guess we should have been inside of Starbucks. Anyways,
Whoa.
yeah, so he pulled a gun on me. And so as soon as he pulled off, just to kind of cap the story, I was like, hey, man, I can't buy these. He pulled a gun on me, gave him the money. And I was like, are you gonna kill me, bro? Like over $900. And so whenever I said that, because I didn't know what to do, I'm like, my hands up, what am I gonna do? Run away? So I said, what are you gonna do? Kill me over $900? And then he put the gun away and he sped off. So I took my phone out and I got his license plate as he sped off. And I remembered he shared his location with me. And I was like, so I called the police and I saw that he still had 9 minutes left until his location expired. So I was able to tell them exactly where he was.
Oh
They
my
went and picked him up.
gosh.
And of
Wow.
course, at this point, I'm like, well, money has to be held for evidence and has to go processing.
Yeah.
Like, I'll probably never see that money again. The police came and they're like, hey man, how much money did he take from you? I was like 900. And they're like, okay, give us about 30 minutes. And they just brought it back to me. No questions asked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was almost an expensive experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
but like, I remember when I got robbed, it was a very, except mine was at night in, a random neighborhood. Yeah, I wasn't very smart about that one. I was new to the business, right? I was,
Yeah.
you get high on the winds, so you think you can take on the world.
A
And
little confident. Yeah.
yeah, you kind of just forget that, there's nefarious people out there, and
Hmm.
that's just what it is. I mean, yeah, but I mean, thanks for sharing that story, dude. I mean, I think other people will definitely relate with that. Um, we just had somebody who joined Recelerator, like right before he joined, he bought a fake iPhone.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, man, like spent $700 on it. And I'm like, well, at least you have a fake one now that you can compare. Because I've bought a fake phone before. I actually bought a fake Samsung about 7 months ago, actually. It was so good I couldn't tell the difference. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So the only real difference that I could tell was like it was a little bit laggy. Like, but
Mm.
just like a little.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier to copy Samsungs than it is Apple. You
Hmm.
can tell with Apple almost immediately because of the bezel and all of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, the fake Apple Watches, I've never seen one of those, surprisingly. Uh, but I also require a bill of sale and stuff for people to sell to me, so that probably scares them off. But yeah. Matt, do you have any questions? I know you kind of just been sitting back there.
Um,
Usually got some pretty good
well, I don't, I mean, I love the manner in which you started your business because I feel like like Chris was saying, there are some similarities there between the two of us. Uh, Also, I was just curious, like you said, you flipped some consoles. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so my rule with consoles, and it's honestly just for shipping purposes, is like I don't really want it unless it has like the box with it. That's just kind of been like a picky
Okay.
thing for me, because
Okay. Yeah.
it's like if I'm gonna make, around $100 or maybe 150 on something, to
Yeah.
me that's I get a lot of stuff where I make, $300 off or $400 sometimes on MacBooks. So it's like if I'm gonna have something where it's like, 100, 150, I want it to be pretty easy. I want it to be a simple,
Hmm.
and not require a bunch of packaging materials. So that's kind of been pretty much why I've limited myself, because people will come to me, they'll say, hey man, do you buy consoles? I say, yeah, if they're new with the box, or if they're used but like still have the box with them. So as you can probably see, that really lowers how many consoles I've gotten. And like, I know
Yeah.
it's lowered my profits, but at the same time,
Yeah.
like I don't mind it because it just makes things a bit smoother. But yeah, the
Yeah.
consoles that I've flipped, I've bought and sold a few like Xboxes, PlayStations, Nintendo Switches. I don't think I've done any like Oculuses or yeah, I don't think I've done any of the VR stuff. Yeah, the consoles have been like probably like the very last thing in terms of like what I've flipped, because it's so seldomly. And then there's like cameras, and then after that it's like, like computers, iPads, Apple Watches, and then it goes up to phones, which is like the main thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, there's a world of opportunity there waiting for you, bro.
It really is.
Yeah.
Actually,
What am I missing out? What
I mean, that would be like a whole other podcast.
probably, yeah. Um, Man, the world of
But
it's funny because Matt opened my eyes to the I had flipped I was probably a little bit more where you are, Jared, before I met Matt. And he like because I never did reach outs actually before I met Matt. He actually
yeah.
changed my entire mindset on the whole thing. Um, and then it's funny, I flipped my first Oculus and then I made like, I think I spent like, I think it was $120 on it. I made like 250 back. I was like, what the hell? Like, is this real? Like, um,
Yeah.
and and the thing about them is like, they're just sitting there on marketplace doing nothing. Like, it's kind of crazy actually. A lot
So
of the Xbox One S's and like just little
yeah.
things like that. It's
Hmm.
honestly insane. Um, but I was never like I got them through upsells basically is how I would say that, and actually through ads. I ran ads for, funny enough, PS4s for quite a, I made so much money off of PS4s from ads for, because I'd buy them for like $50 and flip them for like 150 consistently. It was crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
But
you
I
can
only
still
did it.
do that and double your money on them. I think
Yeah.
the big thing, Jared, is excuse me, it's the ROI that I really, like on consoles. And I think, if you're already buying Apple products and phones and stuff, most people that have an Apple product already have a console. So like, if I were like if you were my student or coaching you or something, I would say, okay, like so be the phone/Apple guy who just upsells people on consoles, whether they're in a box or not. Um, they do sell for a higher premium and faster if they have the box, which I'm sure you're probably aware of. But there's a lot of uncontested potential out there for consoles just floating around, consoles, VR systems, and video games. And I would say that most of the people that probably join Recelerator probably add, if they're buying consoles consistently with the other stuff they're already picking up, like if it's that kind of thing, because we do have people that join that just like consoles and then get into phones, but they're probably adding like anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 extra dollars a month just from consoles. And they do have more parts, and the testing sometimes can be a little bit more tedious. It sounds like you're doing incredibly well, but you could add 1,000 to 3,000 extra dollars, like, and it would feel all too easy probably to your business just by starting to do consoles more consistently. But I do like that you're picking them up with the box. I think that you have your method, you have your approach, you kind of have your rules, and you stay within that boundary, and that's respectable too because it's like that'd be like the best case scenario. Like I showed Chris I had a really weird scenario that happened like a few nights ago. I bought a MetaQuest 3S. People won't believe this. I'll probably need photos for evidence. I bought a MetaQuest 3S off of a Craigslist post for $50. Okay. True story. And I met the guy at a Quick Trip parking lot and he stood there and tested it, no kidding, for 20 minutes. He's just
Very.
standing there staring into this headset, tested it for 20 minutes, said it wasn't working, he'd have to start from scratch, left, came back, and I was I was like, all right, you want my cash now? And I gave him $50 for a MetaQuest 3S. I've never had that happen, okay? In like 5, 6 years of flipping, guys, I've never had that happen. But that's the exception, not the rule. But I mean, I'm gonna sell that for $250. So it was worth waiting there for 20 minutes or whatever. Um, but yeah, it came in the box. It came in the box too. And so I'm like, sweet, it's got the box cover. I'm gonna sell that so fast and so quickly. It's gonna be fantastic. And I haven't listed it yet because my kids want a game on it, and so I thought I might, after letting them game on it this weekend, maybe I'll we'll get it posted. You know how it is, Chris. Maybe you know how it is too, Jared. You got to test the product sometimes a little more thoroughly.
Gotta play Beat
Uh,
Saber and make sure it
Of
works
course.
correctly.
what's that?
You gotta play Beat Saber and make sure it works correctly.
That yeah, that's true. That's true. So anyways, but yeah, if you ever wanted to have an extra conversation about consoles, yeah, we could. I'm not saying I could show you the way, but I could show you a few things, that's for sure.
Nice. Thank you for that. I
Question.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable sharing your eBay numbers, Jared?
Yeah, eBay numbers? Yeah, sure.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure before I throw it out there because a lot of
Yeah,
people,
yeah, yeah.
they're not gonna some people are gonna be like, nah, he's lying. Anyway, so you shared in the comments in the Nothing Held phone flipping group. $187,000 in sales in the past 90 days.
Yep.
It's almost 200K. That's crazy. That's on average $470 plus per item sold.
That's amazing.
That's insane. Like, now I reached out to you because I'm like, you sell phones on eBay, huh?
Chris already knew. He saw that number and he was like, "Oh yeah."
I was like, there's
Yep.
phones in there. I was like, there's gotta
100%.
be.
Yeah. Maybe some
So let's
15s and
talk about
16s.
that, dude. Like that's some, that's some crazy numbers. A lot of people would, even myself. I mean, I typically don't sell anything above the 13 Pro Max on eBay, just because I don't even like dealing. I don't even respond to half the eBay people that message me on eBay, unless they bought a product, right? I don't know what your approach is, but what's it like selling that many phones on eBay? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah. It has its ups and downs. I will say, and the you have like an occasional package issue, right? Sometimes you have a package loss. Sometimes you have, and this is very, very occasional, much more so. It happened a couple times when I first started my eBay up. But people who like do attempt to scam you,
Yeah,
what I've found
Yeah.
personally is that if you have an issue, like I would call eBay customer service. And speaking to some people from eBay customer service, I would think that I'm just SOL, like I just have to kind of give up.
yeah,
But what I
Yeah.
would do is I've found that as long as I just call until I find somebody who's competent and actually cares to understand the situation,
Yep.
they will make sure that the correct action is taken.
That's
So
good.
it's literally just call until you find somebody. Okay, this person cares. They understand the situation, and they want to make sure that things are correct. And sometimes
Mhm.
this stuff that's not even technically by the books. Like they'll see, a lot of times it'll be, oh, but per eBay's policies, this is what it says we have to do. But then I'll talk to somebody else that kind of skirts around that because they can see what I'm saying and it makes
yeah,
sense. So, but the insane amounts of money that I've made overselling to, traditional well, like there's two different ways you could do it, right? You can sell to a direct buyer. And if I were to sell to a direct buyer instead of eBay, I would make a lot less money. And the other side of that is selling locally. I would probably make more money selling locally because I don't have to get hit with eBay fees. And a lot of times you can just sell for more locally. But it takes more time. You have to spend your time talking to people about the stuff. You have to meet up with them, which takes more of your time. And then you have to hope that they're going to pay the price that you want or buy it at all whenever you actually get there. It's just a lot of
Yeah.
headache,
Yeah.
whereas you can spend that time on getting more stuff. Then that way, once you list on eBay, all you have to do after that is just ship it out. You're done. Whereas, my situation, I have somebody who does that for me. So as soon as I get something, I just give them to him and he processes it through eBay, ships it and all that stuff.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I would say, and I do have some direct buyers that I sell to here and there. But the price difference between selling on eBay and selling to direct buyers, it's pretty vast for a lot of the, a lot of the items. So I always recommend going on eBay, but I do understand why some people are hesitant about eBay because, like I said, there's been a handful of times where somebody has tried to scam me. And a lot
Yeah.
of people will just kind of give up. They're like, well, eBay said this, and that's just how it is. And that's not been my experience at all. As long as you've done the correct thing, you've done actions with integrity, and you're just trying to
Yeah.
make sure that things are done correctly, the truth will prevail. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You're
yeah,
doing the right thing. You're just trying to make sure that things are settled correctly. So in my experience, as long as you keep pushing until eventually you find somebody who will, fix your issue. eBay has been great. But I can definitely see somebody running into, like, let's say a scam attempt, and then eBay is like, sorry, this is just how it is. And they just give up and they're like, I'm never doing eBay again. I
yeah.
can see that perspective too.
Right.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's one reason. Like whenever, for example, if somebody joins Recelerator, like they're looking to learn eBay. Like I think that's one of our biggest selling points for that program, is because it is a beast to learn. Let's be real. Like
Yep.
understanding how to sell on it correctly, price cycling, all of this stuff. Like it's definitely a learning curve. But like
Yeah.
once you understand it and you know how to utilize it, eBay is a tool that can put your
Mhm.
product in front of millions of people, and that's powerful, right? Like that's a real thing. um and a lot of people, they lose access to it because of a lot of reasons, actually. Like number one, they go against eBay's policies. I mean, selling iCloud locked phones and selling, all of that stuff on eBay because it's against their policy, and then they get mad
Yep.
and eBay ban them. Well, bro, you literally went against what they said that you could do, and you got banned, and now you're mad. Like, or selling new inbox. A lot of new. Do you sell new inbox on eBay?
I don't sell sealed, but that's simply because, well, I sell sealed bad ESN on eBay. But everything that has, if it's new and I'm selling it as a not bad as ESN, which I do sometimes, like for example, AT&T, I'll sell as Cricket. I do sell new in box, yeah, but I'll open it, so to be technically open box.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I have noticed with eBay is they don't really like the new on their platform. I've noticed that quite a bit. I remember we had a student who sold like I think it was like probably $12,000 worth of new in box computers on there, and it totally shut his account down.
Really?
Yeah. Like he sold them like in a bulk way though, so that's probably what it was. Because it was such a larger purchase outside of like what he typically did. So they, it kind of flagged their system and stuff. And
Yeah, I also wasn't sure that his account was probably as mature as it should be. Like if you did that,
that's
Chris, or
fair.
me,
Yeah. Like he had only been in the program for maybe 6 months to a year, or maybe a year. Yeah. And that's about how long he had had an eBay account too.
yeah,
So it wasn't a super old eBay account. Um, but still. Um,
right.
but I still think, that amount of sales on eBay is impressive. I mean, if you don't mind sharing, like, what's the profit margin look like on that on average?
Yeah, it's typically like 30-35% on
I
average.
mean, that's good. Yeah,
Yeah,
That's
that's
nice.
really good. That's awesome, dude.
thank you.
Well,
It's better
congratulations.
than Amazon.
Yeah, go tell those numbers to Spencer. He'll love
Yeah, you will.
that.
Yeah, and for anybody listening, just to kind of, I guess I didn't really stress this point too much, but before I started this business, I was totally broke, and I never even sniffed like, I think a good month for me whenever I was working my job, for example, was like 4K take home, like with a bunch of overtime.
Wow.
And I had a month, I had a month where I did over $30,000 in net profit in this business. So like, I mean, it doesn't matter where you come from. Like it
Right.
literally anything is possible.
Yeah.
And I've been able to take, what I've made and put it into investments for the future and stuff. So, I couldn't even, if you would have told me 2 years ago that I'd be where I am now, I'd be like, nah, you're joking. So it's totally doable. It really is.
You've
Yeah.
done all this in about 2 years.
Yeah, it's been, it would have been February 2023 whenever I started. Yeah, and that's whenever
Man.
I started with the, I was like doing car radios and the saw and this stuff. So this was like before I
Hmm.
even really got into what actually, what really makes good money.
Right. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool, man. A lot of people. So I want to ask about that. Like, you didn't start with much, but you built it into this thing. A lot of people they would have made a lot of excuses along the way on why, they couldn't do that, right? But you're here, and you had never made more than $4,000 in a month at your job, and now you hit a 30K profit month. Um, like there's a lot of stuff that people would have made excuses about along the way. What is something that you kind of like? I know you kind of just like kept going in the business and you didn't even realize how much you were making until you started adding any, things up. What kept you in the mindset though? Like to keep going in this business?
Yeah. That's honestly, I think that it's probably because I've had at least two things that I started to take action on that were kind of went similarly. Like I was doing wholesale house flipping for a little
Okay.
bit, and
Cool.
I had flipped two of them, and I was starting to have some success, but I started to have excuses. I started to have doubts, and I fed into that more than I fed into what was actually working. And so I stopped doing it. And I came away from that with like a bunch of excuses as to why it didn't work and why it wasn't for me, this, that, and the other. And I'd had many things before that where I like, started them a little bit and the same thing happened, excuse. So I think
Okay.
experience with those, just knowing like having been there before, knowing that if I feed into those thoughts of, doubt and excuses as to why it won't work, or, basically just fear, honestly, fear of it not working, I started to
Yeah.
focus on that and I started to experience that. So it's like wherever your focus goes is what actually comes to fruition. So
Right.
if you focus on, oh, this is working, and you focus more on what is working, and then you also start to ask yourself, how can it work even better? then you open yourself up. I don't know if you guys know anything about the reticular activating system in your brain, but it's essentially the part of your brain that is responsible for filtering out things that it perceives as not being relevant. So like, for example, you get a new car and all of a sudden, I just got a Tesla, for example. I started noticing Teslas everywhere. They
Yeah.
were
Right.
there before, right? My brain just wasn't perceiving them. It was filtering them out because it did not perceive them as being relevant to me. So in the
Yeah.
same sense, if you start focusing on things in your business, and it's just any part of life, but in your business, such as what is working and how it could work even better, then your
Yeah.
reticular activating system starts to filter out the things that don't align with that, things that would mean that you are failing, right? It starts to filter those things out. You stop seeing them. But if you
Yeah.
start to focus on your doubts and your fears and your insecurities, your reticular activating system will start to filter out things that show you that you are successful, that you are winning, and these things. So a lot of internal work, I guess, a lot of mindset stuff
Yeah.
is what I would say has been a big part of why I'm where I'm. So
That's awesome. Well, the mind, it wants you to be safe, right?
exactly.
So it goes towards what's comfortable most of the time, and
Mhm.
it goes towards what you know. And that, when it comes to learning new things, a lot of times there's that very difficult mountain to climb in the beginning because, Matt always says it, like, everything's hard until it's not, right? Like, and then you don't even realize it's hard or it's not hard anymore once you understand it and once you've done it a few times. But I think you have to have that perspective. Like, you can't just have knowledge, and you have to have knowledge and perspective and experience,
Yep.
which I call perspective. But I love that. That's awesome. So it did all this in 2 years. That's crazy, dude. What are some things you found along the way that helped you? I know you said you talked about like my ads video and stuff. What are some other stuff that you looked into to kind of help, with that?
Yeah, I mean the ad stuff. Let's see. I think I can't remember if it was you or another person. Google My Business. Somebody was stressing Google My Business a lot.
Believe me.
What are you?
Probably.
Do you stress it?
Dude,
Yeah, it might have been
I'm a
you.
I'm kind of a broken record on that one.
It's a fair point.
It's it's crazy how great it is, and it's free.
Yeah.
So Google My Business has been great. It keeps my phone ringing a few times a day, and that's 100% free.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's been really good. And then something that I've kind of done since the beginning is just like following up with like my repeat customers all the time. People who
Yeah.
people who come back to me, I make sure to stay in touch with them. That's been really big. Of course, it'd be better if I followed up with even the people who aren't my repeats more often. um, but yeah, and then like I tell a lot of people, a lot of it is just being a good person. Like just be a good person who cares about people, who cares about
Mhm.
that you're doing business with integrity, and people will want to do business with you. Man, I can't tell you how many times I've had people say to me something along the lines of like, I know that I could get more from this place or that place, but like I just really like doing business with you. I can tell you're a great person, and they'll kind of inflate your ego a bit, but
Yeah.
it tells me that being a good person and just having integrity, just doing what you say you'll do, and just having good intentions for other people, it really does pay off. And it's I've seen that time and time again. And I've had many people tell me like, oh man, you can't I can't even tell you, you're saving my life right now by buying this from me. It's like,
Yeah.
I had to pay my water bill. Thank you so much. And they'll go leave me a review. Jared's the man, he's blah, blah, blah. Just like, I'm literally just buying your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's the greatest offer in the world, in my opinion. Right. Like, so I've tried a lot of other businesses. Um, I got into social media marketing. I got into quite a few different things. And I even, for a while, I was actually an accountability coach and with the people that gave me this award. So I got to see like the internals of a lot of different businesses. And they were all the same, right? They sell a service to people for a thing, for money, right? What's different about this business model though is like we give them the money. We give them the money,
Right.
which
Yeah.
like is the greatest offer in the world, right?
Mhm.
Like, can
Mhm.
I give you cash today? And it's kind of like, yeah, like, so I recently built what's called a power dialer in Resell Deck, my software, and basically I put in everybody that I've ever bought from, and I just started dialing, you know, and I just called them up. I was like, hey, this is Chris. Looks like I bought your iPhone 11 Pro Max about 3 months ago. Did you have any other electronics you might be looking to sell? Any MacBooks, iPads, smartwatches, cameras? And like, actually, yes, I do. you know, when, you know, and then they would tell me what they had, and
Hmm.
then I'd make an offer, and they're like, "All right, done, cool. Thank you for calling me today." You know,
Right
like,
on.
so like I love that because it's, you know, the offer that we have is, you don't find it very much in the market, you know, and when there's a good person tied to it as well, I think that that inflates it even further, because a lot of, I'm just gonna be real, a lot of the quote unquote phone flippers, like, dude, they're rude as hell. Like, they're rude to their customers. You know, I've seen it firsthand, and we've had to coach it out of some people. I'm like, you need to actually care about your customers here if you
Yeah.
want them to keep coming back.
Yep.
If you show up and you're rude, you don't look professional, you don't act professional,
Yep.
they're you know, they're not going to want to do business again. Um, because, you know, people, they'll associate with you. You know, like, some people, like Jared, you work with people from Facebook ads all the time. How many people think you're a scam, like, on a daily basis? Like,
Tons. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like,
And
you have
I,
to break that narrative, and like show people like, hey, I am real, and I'm here to give you cash. And once you do break that narrative, though, you're their go-to, man. Like,
yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
talk about that a little bit. Like,
Yeah, man.
He's the plug.
People with that barrier, if you're able to gain their trust, because I've had people who they'll let me know, like, hey, just so you know, I don't really trust this. I'm trying to sell
yeah,
this thing, but like, I don't know if you're real. Like, your reviews are
yeah,
good, but like, I'm not so sure about this. And that's fine. Just kind of talk them through it. Like, if you want to meet at the police station, we can do that. That's totally cool too. Like, wherever you're safe. Like, and as soon
Right.
as I meet with those people every single time, I know that either they tell me directly or I can just sense that if whenever they have another device to sell, they're not going anywhere else because it took them, they had to build up courage and get past their fears just to connect with me. So now that they have connected with me, the hard thing would be to go try to do that again with somebody else. Why
Right.
would they go out of their way, even if they could get more money? They've
yep,
already established this safe place to go and sell their devices. And I have people like that. That's people who become regulars. And a lot of times, a lot of these people, they're not going to get stuff all the time. It's just
yeah,
every now and again they have something, and I'll forget about them until they hit me up like, oh man, that was like a year ago. And they
yeah,
came back to me, and I remember why they came back to me. It's because we built
Mm,
trust. But yeah,
yeah.
man,
yeah,
there's a
that's
lot of
good.
skepticism for sure.
One of the best things that I ever built into Resell Deck was actually the very first thing that I built, because I realized how important it was 30-day follow-ups for an entire year, so that I knew that they wouldn't forget about me at that point. What's funny is I bought so I bought a phone, a 16 Pro Max, an iPad, and then later that day a drone from a guy last month. Made it ridiculous. I made like, I think like $600 or $700 in profit just off this dude. Anyway, so a text went out from Resell Deck a few, like, 3 days ago, and it messaged him like, "Hey, I bought your device about a month ago. Blah blah blah. Do you have any other electronics?" And he's like, "Holy crap, dude! Yes, I do. I have this Xbox Series X that I need to sell right now." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Like, I'll be, meeting people at 12 and 5 today. Which time works best?" He's like, "I'll meet you at 12." I'm like, "Great, cool." Um, and he's like, "Dude, your text came in at like the best moment. Like, I just found out my girlfriend's cheating on me, and I'm moving out, and I need money, and your text was like a godsend." And I was like, "Oh, well, here's your money. Appreciate, I'm glad I could help you out, man." Like,
Yeah.
so, but it's like you said, like, and we had already met before, so he knew, like, he was ready,
Yeah.
and he knew I was good to buy it. And I think that's really important. And I think, a lot of people don't realize this. You can use that same type of energy with pawn shops, repair shops, and places like that too. Do you do anything
Yeah.
like that?
Yep.
I don't. I've actually thought of doing that. Like, I know that that is a good idea to try and make some good connections with pawn shops and repair shops. Actually, I take that back. I do have a connection with the repair shop that sells me stuff like on a pretty regular basis, like stuff that it's like overflow. He knows that if he lets it sit there, he would get more for it eventually, but at some point
Yeah.
he's got to sell some things, so he'll sell
Mhm.
to me what is too much for a lower price than what he can get at his shop. But I haven't gone out of my way to like reach out directly to pawn shops and repair shops to like find those good relationships. But I definitely know there's still value there for me, which is crazy because I'm already doing so well. So
Right.
to add to that
That
is
makes
like,
sense. Yeah.
yeah.
So primary lead source is Facebook ads right now. and
Yeah.
repeats, it sounds like.
Yep.
That shows, guys, you can build, the bulk of your business off of 1 to 2 channels. you know like I offered 6 different ways to do it. I think people tend to fall into what they're most comfortable with. you know like for me now anyway, I prefer Google, like Google My Business and Google Ads, just because honestly, man, I close like almost everybody. It's crazy. Especially if I get on the phone with them, they're game over most of the time. um
Yeah.
they tend to like me. But then we got some other people. We had David Veras on the podcast a few weeks ago. He almost exclusively at this point does Google My Business. That's all he works on, is optimizing just the crap out of it. You know. And then we got other people that, focus strictly on Facebook ads. And I think, and then heck, some people in Recelerator only do reach outs. Only. That's it. And they do insanely well.
Yeah.
So I think everybody kind of figures out what they kind of vibe with, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool. So, um, Jared, are there any insights you could give to like somebody? Because a lot of people that listen to this podcast are like driving around, picking up phones, picking up devices, and a lot of these guys are relatively newer. Um, is there anything that you would tell your younger self, like before, in those beginning stages where they're making their first, $2,000 to $3,000 of profit?
Yeah. I remember when I was in that position, which, as you know, it wasn't too long ago, 2 years ago, which would have been less than 2 years ago when I was just kind of getting into it. Um, One of the biggest challenges that I found myself in was I would have doubts of like, is this going to be sustainable? Like, for example, I'd be like, oh man, I made really good money today, but like, what about tomorrow? It's like this doubt of
Yeah.
sustainability. It's like, and then you would have some days where it's like, oh, I didn't get nothing today. Today's a 0 day. Like, how am I going to sustain this? Um, what I would say to my younger self is to just honestly just have some faith in the process, and to like, I think for the doubts, I would watch things like this video, for example, like your podcast, that shows the mind, hey, this is not just some like thing that you make a little profit here and there. This is something that is real, that is sustainable, that is
Yeah.
proven time and time again by other people. I can see their example. So if they're doing it and I'm already starting to have some success with this, I'm already getting a flip here or there, then that means that I am very fully capable of doing the same thing. So I would say honestly, any doubts that appear in your mind, to just discard them, because they literally have no basis in reality unless you make them so, unless you pay attention to them and decide that they mean something to you. And what I've found is in my life is, if I pay attention to those doubts, I'll actually start to experience the reality of those doubts. If I start to think, oh man, this is not going to work, guess what? For the next week, I'm going to get barely nothing for flips, right? And so I would say just like, have a little faith, and discard anything that says anything other than what you are desiring. If you're desiring to have success in this business, see it's a factual thing that this business is very doable, and just decide that you're going to be successful in it, and don't listen to anything that says otherwise, because it's just the mind, as you said, Chris, trying to keep you safe, trying to keep you in your comfort zone, because the unknown is where the mind has quite a bit of challenges, but in the unknown is where you grow. It's where you have success. Nobody
Mhm.
becomes successful by not diving into the unknown and getting comfortable in the unknown.
Yeah,
That's what I would say.
very true. Matt, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, um I think I can appreciate just the willingness to take calculated risk, and how people need to realize that lots of times the thing about focus is that if a lot of us can learn to harness it, it really can become, almost like an own sort of personal superpower. Uh, because these things, beliefs are funny things, and lots of times you start to believe that something's going to happen, and I think what you're saying, I don't know that the word was actually used, but there's a self-fulfilling prophecy to the process of, when you start to get anxious and then you start to kind of be reluctant and you don't make decisions with 100% confidence. Yeah. And then you make an error, and what do? You fixate on the error rather than like what happened that's great. And so, I think a lot of people, again, they look at Chris, they look at you, they look at myself, and they think that our success is somehow like marginal, that we are the people, you know, if this is a bell-shaped curve, that we're the people to the outside on the edge. And that's not us. Like we're everyday dudes that just kind of stayed persistent and followed this process. I would like to say to everybody, what is out there on the curve? You know what I mean? Like people who make it to the NFL, like that's out there, right? Like, um, and I guess I'm making that point because the likelihood that somebody's going to play pro ball, and everybody, you know, in their child in the Midwest will put their kid in Pee Wee football and have them, you know, running around on the field thinking my kid's the one, my kid's going to do it. I would say that the probability of you succeeding in a business like this, is like exponentially higher than how far you probably thought you were going to go when you played youth sports. And that includes me, okay? And I played college soccer. So I like hearing your story. I like hearing stories like this because again, I think what it does build is it builds belief, it builds faith that if I can, you know, trust the process and stay persistent, then yeah, things like this, good things like this can happen. And I think it's really great too that um, you did so well in the last 90 days. I think that's an incredible testament to something that Chris and I often talk about on the podcast, which is the urgency to not just buy stuff and get good at buying it, but to get really good at selling stuff. And looking at eBay and going, this, if, or Chris said at the beginning of our podcast, and you've proven it here, Jared, like this thing is a tool, but to have this skill where guys, it doesn't have to be phones. Like it could be anything. It could be like tools. It could be porcelain. It could be china. It could be like, I don't know, exclusive stamps or even marbles. Have you ever seen the value in certain types of marbles, like playing marbles, like kids' toys? Like, and you can use eBay to decide, okay, what's the going rate for this item? What are people willing to pay for this? What's the exchange of perceived value here? Okay, if I can learn this market, I can make money in this market. And we just happen to be focusing on electronics. But I think anybody who's willing to like bet on themselves and double down, they're going to see results similar to yours, Jared. And I think that that is applaudable. That's really awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And one other thing that I'll add to that I kind of forgot to throw in there is, first of all, decide definitively that you are going to achieve whatever it is. Well, because when you decide something definitively, meaning there is no other way that things are going to go, you just decide that, okay, I see that this is possible. I know this is possible. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do it definitively. Life seems to have a way of making things quite a bit easier when you have that definitiveness within yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, whenever you whenever you decide that, I say the definitive me. Whoa, that word escaped me now. The definitiveness, and then also just deciding, realizing that you deserve to have that life, right? Because I feel like a lot of times we can get so caught in our struggle. Like it's like this feeling of like having to struggle to survive,
Mhm.
and just realizing that we deserve to not have to struggle. We deserve to make a good income to provide for ourselves and our family if we have one yet. And that's just that worthiness of feeling like you're worth having that life. That is something that I've found to be also monumental for having, because before I did not have that. And I think that's a key piece, because if you don't feel like you're worth having that kind of lifestyle, then I don't know if you can ever really achieve it.
I like that. That's awesome. I think that's a great place to end it.
Beautiful.
Jared, dude, it's been good. I'll have to bring you on again.
Mhm.
It's good stuff.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me,
Well,
brother.
dude, thanks for coming on. This has been great. I think this will, I think it'll, one thing coming from me and Matt, because we've been selling on eBay for a long time. And then another thing coming from you is like, uh, I think it'll help a lot of people realize like, eBay isn't all bad.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
I see that all the time everywhere in the groups and in my DMs and all of that. And it's just like, eBay is it's the big scary monster, that eats all my profit. And I'm like, well, if it's eating all your profit, then you're making the wrong offers. Like that's
Yeah.
really the problem
Try something different.
there. Yeah, exactly. So Well, with that being said, guys, this has been another episode of the Smart Flip. I actually got to go buy a phone here in a few minutes because it's about to be 12.
I sold a phone. Just want to put that out there,
Hey, there we
Chris.
go. Look at that. Matt going outside of his comfort zone. Well, Jared, thanks for coming on, dude. This has been great. By the way, guys, just make sure to check out the other episodes. I know a lot of you guys are driving around in your car. We are 50 something episodes deep now. And make sure to join the Facebook group and all of that stuff. And we will see you guys next Friday. See you later. Stop recording.